One kid killing the parents is a bad seed. Two kids killing the parents is a bad family.
Mr. Menendez, would you circle the entire nightstand so that now, where in relation to the nightstand was this tape recorder and phone jack?
Was right underneath.
On the left side, the right side?
The right side if you're facing the nightstand.
Okay. And show me what's contained in the envelope marked 267. Do you know what that is?
Yes, this was the telephone hook device to the recorder.
Now, you also told us, did you find tape recordings after your parents died that told you what that recorder was used for?
Yes, I did.
And whose voices were on the tape recordings that you found?
Mine.
And who else?
Whoever I was talking to. They were just tape recordings of my phone conversations.
They were tape recordings of phone calls to your number?
Anytime the phone was picked up, apparently, the tape recording went on because I could hear the buttons being pushed on the tape recorder.
All right, but if you listen to the question, were they tape recordings of incoming calls to you and outgoing calls from you, both?
Yes.
And could you tell by listening to some of the tapes how far back these recordings went?
I heard one that went back to the winter, but there were so many tapes I didn't look at them all.
Went back to the winter of 88, 89?
Yes.
And did you ever play or show any portion of those tapes to any friends of yours?
Yes.
Do you remember who you might have played any portions of them for?
I know I played a portion to Danny Roberts.
Was he a friend of yours from Beverly Hills High School?
Yes.
Did you keep those tape recordings of your phone calls?
No, I threw them all away.
When you found them, did it explain what you thought was magical powers on the part of your mother?
Yes.
Now, returning for a moment to Thursday night, in addition to what you have told us about what your brother Lyle related to you concerning his conversation with your father, okay? Did Lyle also tell you that your father had basically said that he was going to go on doing whatever he was doing with you?
Yes.
And did Lyle express some kind of reaction that he had or that he was feeling to your father saying, basically, I'll molest whoever I want to molest?
Yes.
And what was...
Objection sustained. The answer is stricken.
Did he tell you that your father said that, you know, that you were his son and he'd do whatever he wanted?
Whatever he wanted with me. Yes, Lyle said he threatened him at that point. I don't know if he used...
Lyle said who threatened at that point?
Lyle threatened Dad.
Okay. All right. Now, what was Lyle expressing to you on Thursday night about how he reacted to your father's basically saying he would continue?
How he reacted in the room with my father or in the room with me?
With you.
About the room with my dad?
All right, let's start over. Let's start over.
In the room with me, he looked scared. He was telling me that he got angry with my dad when he was talking to my dad, though.
Did he tell you anything about how shocking or unexpected your father's response was?
Objection leading. Sustained.
Did he tell you why he had threatened to expose your father?
Yeah, because he was surprised by Dad's reaction. He couldn't believe how Dad was reacting to what he was saying.
Did Lyle indicate to you whether or not he planned to threaten your father with exposure or just lost control of the conversation?
No, he didn't plan, at least to my knowledge, to threaten Dad.
Did he tell you basically he blew it? He lost it?
No, because I remember in the conversation on Wednesday I was telling him, you know, Lyle thought he had control of the situation. I was trying to tell him, Dad's not going to be so happy, and, you know, don't be careful. And Lyle was telling me on Thursday that he blew it, basically.
That he blew it?
Yeah.
Because he threatened to expose him?
Yeah.
Now, I was asking you just before the break about a nightmare. Was there a particular nightmare that you had many, many times in your life?
Yes.
Did you have it many times before August of 1989?
Yes.
Have you even had it many times since?
Yes.
Did you have it the night of Thursday, August 17th, 1989?
Yes.
Could you tell us briefly what that nightmare was?
It was about a green face and how it changed into becoming Dad chasing me through this darkness.
And was this dream about a green face that chases you? You had that before?
Yes.
Was there also any animal-like figures in this dream?
Yeah, there were a cow and a horse.
And where would the cow and the horse and the green face, how did the dream begin?
Well, the dream began with me just becoming real tiny, and everything just got larger and larger, and I felt like I was disappearing, and it was real. It was terrifying, and then that disappeared, and I went into a different state. I don't know how to describe it.
Is this
Suddenly,
how the dream always was?
Yes.
It always started with you shrinking?
Yes.
And then when did green face and cow and horse show up in the dream?
Right. Well, the cow and the horse were not always in that dream. They were sometimes in different dreams. They were things that I was afraid of, along with the green face. It was pretty much the green face that would chase me most. Sometimes the cow and the horse would be there. The dream was, I don't know how to describe it.
All right, well, what would happen with the green face? You'd start to be chased by this green-faced creature, and when would it turn into Dad?
Almost immediately.
And did you see other people in this dream that you knew?
Yes.
Who would you see in the dream?
Alicia, Sylvia, Anna Maria.
Who are they?
My relatives.
Well,
my
what
cousins.
about your aunts and uncles? Would you see them too?
No.
What about your mother? Was she ever in that dream?
Yes.
Now, would these other people, your relatives and your mother, show up during the part of the dream when you're being chased?
Yes, but at different points.
Okay. How did you run to people in this dream?
I ran to my relatives and asked them if I told them that Dad was chasing me, and asked them if they saw Dad, and they would say no. And I would run. I ran to Lyle, and then he would suddenly abandon me and run away.
What about Mom?
I would run to Mom, but she was over the roof of the Pennington house.
In the dream, she was over the roof?
Yeah, she was sort of floating in the sky in the Pennington house.
So you couldn't get to her either?
No, I tried.
And how would this dream end?
With me falling off the roof in the Pennington house.
And is that the version of the dream that you had Thursday night?
Yes.
Now, on Friday, did you hear your brother testify that you went with him to a gun store, a Big Five in Santa Monica, and inquired about buying handguns?
Yes.
And were told that there was a 2-week waiting period?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Before you left the house to go to that gun store, had you been on the tennis court practicing?
Yes.
And did your brother have a conversation with you to get you to stop practicing and do something else?
Yes.
Now, did you hear your brother testify that he said something like, just because it's a new day doesn't mean things are okay?
That's basically what he said.
Okay. What were you saying to him that made you say that? What were you saying to Lyle that made him say that to you?
Well, he came over to the tennis court and asked if I was ready to go. And I said, no. I said something like, I'm playing tennis, I got a tournament coming up, I don't really feel like it. And he said something like, you know, I realize this is you know, hard to think about, but this is real. This isn't something that's going to go away. This is serious. And I just didn't want to deal with it.
Well, what were you thinking? Was it a sunny Friday morning?
Yes.
And what were you thinking that morning about whether it was real?
I thought it was real, but it seemed like a bad dream the night before. The next morning, the sun was out, the birds were chirping, and it just seemed like this wasn't happening, and I didn't want to think about it.
Okay. So after your brother told you that things are serious, did you have to think about it?
Yes.
And did you agree with him?
Yeah, I agreed to go.
Did you think that what had happened on Thursday, his talk with your father, your confrontation with your father, your mother telling you what she told you, did you think that was serious stuff?
Oh, I knew it was serious stuff. That's why I didn't want to think about it.
Had you spent time in earlier years when your father would threaten to do something to you if you told, okay, had you thought about what it was he would do?
If I told? Mm-hmm. Well, he told me what he would do if I told.
He told you what?
He told me that he'd kill me. He told me that he'd tie me a chair and beat me to death. He told me all sorts of things.
Did you ever picture what would happen if it came out inside the family? In other words, if you told Lyle and if your parents found out you had told Lyle, had you ever envisioned this happening?
No.
Now, after you went to the Big Five in Santa Monica, did you drive towards, in the direction of San Diego with your brother?
Soon after.
But you did take that drive?
Yes.
And when you started that drive, had there been any decision by yourself and your brother to go ahead and buy a long gun since you couldn't buy a handgun?
No.
And was there a discussion in the car after which such a decision was made?
There was a discussion before the decision was made, yes.
Yes, and after that discussion, was it then that you decided you had to get a gun, even if it had to be a long gun?
Yes.
And what was the subject matter of that discussion in the car?
The things that Dad had done to me.
The sexual things and other things?
Yes.
And was this the first time that you were actually telling your brother what had happened?
Yeah, the details of what had happened.
Did you tell him all the details of everything that happened for 12 years?
No, definitely not.
Basically, what did you tell him about the sex itself? Do you recall?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth, Your Honor.
Well, at this point, there is no request for the substance of it, just whether he recalls. So the objection is overruled to the form of the question.
What's the question again?
All right. Do you remember? This is just a preparatory question. Do you remember what you told your brother about what the nature of the sexual activity between yourself and your father had been?
Yes.
Okay. What did you tell him the nature of the sexual activity had been?
Objection, hearsay.
Objection sustained as to the form of the question is calling for hearsay.
It's not being offered for the truth, Your Honor, but to explain Lyle Menendez's state of mind and why he formed the opinion that his father was sick, which he testified to.
All right, the objection is overruled. It will be received only as it might reflect upon the state of mind of the person hearing the statement and as to what, if any, state of mind he had in reaction to it. All right, do you understand the question?
Yes.
Okay. Can you answer the question?
I told him that it was basically oral sex that was happening.
Okay. And did you tell him anything about any kind of violence that would accompany it or any kind of threats from your father?
Yes.
And what did you tell him about violence?
I told him that there were pins and tacks that Dad would stick in me and use.
Pins
Could you speak up, please?
That Dad would stick in me and use.
Pins and tacks?
Yes.
And did you give him the impression that these pins and tacks were being used during oral sex?
Yes.
And in fact, was that something that did happen between yourself and your father when you were a teen?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you tell him about any weapons that your father ever threatened you with?
I told him that he threatened me with a knife.
Now, Mr. Menendez, do you remember the kind of knife that your father threatened you with?
Yes.
What kind was it?
It was a jagged knife.
A what?
A jagged knife on one end. It was a Rambo knife.
A Rambo knife.
Yeah, a knife that he had.
Your father's company, did you understand that your father's company was partly owned by the company that made the Rambo movies?
Yes.
And was there a promotional item, a knife, like the knife Rambo uses in the movie?
Yes.
That your father received?
Yes.
And was that knife kept in the Beverly Hills and Calabasas houses?
Yes.
And is that what he used to threaten you?
Yes.
And was that the knife you were referring to earlier when you said there was one occasion when you said no? And
Objection sustained.
was there an occasion when you said no?
Yes.
Was there a knife used on that occasion?
Yes.
What knife was that?
The Rambo knife.
When you were telling your brother about a knife, was it that occasion you were talking about or some other occasion?
That occasion.
Overruled. What was your answer?
That occasion.
And did you tell your brother the specific kinds of threats that your father had made, should you tell?
Yes.
Had your father ever threatened to hurt anyone besides you if you told someone?
Yes.
And what was that threat?
He told me that he would kill whoever I told.
He would kill whoever you told?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Menendez, on that Friday, August 18th, 1989, were you carrying Donovan Goudreau's driver's license with you?
Yes.
Excuse me. How long had you carried it up to that point?
A few months.
Were you in New Jersey when your Aunt Terry was cleaning out Lyle's college room?
Yes.
Were you aware that she found Donovan's license?
Yes.
Did you receive his license in New Jersey or back in California?
In Jersey.
And what purpose, if any, did you use that license before August 18th, 1989?
To get into a nightclub here and there.
Did you have another ID that was fake?
Yes.
And was that, what name was that ID in?
Richard Stevens.
And did you know a Richard Stevens?
No, it was a fake ID.
Well, was there such a person once upon a time, do you think?
Possibly, not that I knew.
How did you get a license in the name of Richard Stevens?
Oh, they had birth certificates at the high school in Calabasas. Many kids had them.
They had birth certificates?
Birth certificates that you would take to the DMV and just say, you're this person, and they give you an ID.
Were these real birth certificates, fake birth certificates? You didn't know?
I think they were fake.
But you used such a fake birth certificate to get a license in the name of Richard Stevens?
Yes.
With whose picture on it?
My picture.
And what address?
I don't remember.
A fake address?
I think so, I'm not sure.
And what date of birth?
Over 21. I don't remember the date of birth.
Would it be based on the fake birth certificate, what the date of birth was?
Yes.
And did you carry that one around with you all the time?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't want to lose it. I mean,
Why?
I had lost my wallet before, and I had lost a cousin of mine's ID that I had used then, so I was without one. And when I got the Stevens one, I just kept it in my bedroom for safekeeping.
Did you ever take it out of your bedroom?
Yeah, when I knew I was going to go to a nightclub or I knew I was going to need it, then I'd take it.
Did you consider that a better fake ID than Donovan's?
Well, that one was real.
Well, how could it be real?
Well, it had my signature and it had my picture, so it was a real DMV license. So I mean, it was real.
Well, Donovan's was real too. It was just real for him.
It was real for him, but you know, I looked like Donovan, but I wasn't Donovan, and I wasn't 6'1" or whatever his height was.
So you didn't really match the description or entirely match the appearance on Donovan's license? Is that what you're saying?
No, not as well as my own description.
Okay, and the Richard Stevens license had your description, your picture?
Yes.
Did your mother know that you were getting this Richard Stevens license?
Yes, she told me how to do it.
She told you how to do it?
I had to go to the DMV and get it made.
So did she know you had this fake birth certificate and were intending to do this?
Yes.
Now, what about a real Erik Menendez driver's license? Was there such a thing in existence?
Once upon a time.
I mean, were you licensed by the state of California?
Yes.
And it wasn't suspended or revoked at that time, was it?
No.
But where was your license?
I had lost it with my wallet.
And in fact, in July of 1989, did you receive a traffic ticket citing you for, among other things, having no license in your possession?
Yes.
Now, do you remember if on July 7th, 1989, when you got that ticket, were you carrying either the Richard Stevens ID or the Donovan Goodrow ID?
I was carrying Donovan's.
And why didn't you show that to the policeman who stopped you?
Because it wasn't my license.
So you didn't want to show him a completely false license for this ticket?
No.
May I have a moment, Your Honor? Mr. Menendez, showing you the last entry on this computer driving record, do you see a ticket that you received on July 7th, 1989?
Yes.
And do you see there are 3 violations there?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Kuriyama, are the people willing to stipulate that one of those violations, Section 12951A of the California Vehicle Code, is for having no license in one's possession?
So stipulated.
Thank you. Mr. Menendez, you recall when you were in San Diego that you went to 2 different places down there that sold guns?
Yes.
Can I get you to stop reading that? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And did you learn after going to the first place that you'd need something in order to purchase even shotguns?
Yes.
What would you need?
Driver's license.
And you had Donovan's with you?
Yes.
Had you ever signed Donovan's name? Had you ever used the license in a way that required you to sign his name?
No.
Did you know whether or not you would have to do that when you bought guns?
No, I wasn't sure.
Did you think you might?
I thought I might.
Did you think you might need some address other than the address on Donovan's license to buy guns in San Diego?
I thought I might.
And what was the general area? First of all, did you notice Donovan's address on the license?
Sure.
Was it the San Diego or Los Angeles area?
No.
What did you do, if anything, in order to come up with a local address?
I looked in a telephone book.
And where were you when you looked in the telephone book?
I had a restaurant, I think it was Bob's Big Boy. I'm not sure.
A semi-fast food restaurant?
Yeah, like a Denny's type of thing.
And was this in the San Diego area?
Yes.
Was this before or after you went to the first gun store down there?
This was after.
And you looked in the book to find an address?
Yes.
And later on, when you were inside the Big Five, did you remember that address that you had looked at in the book?
No.
So what did you do to give the saleswoman an address when you were in the Big Five?
I just signed August.
Why?
Because it was the month of August. I couldn't think of anything else to do.
You had forgotten what you had seen?
I'd forgotten the address that I was supposed to use, so I just used August.
And what about for the number? Where'd you get the number from?
I just made it up.
Now, did you give the saleswoman the information that Donovan Goodrow was born in Burlingame, California?
Yes.
Do you recall Mr. Goodrow testifying here that he was born in Glenora, California?
No, but...
You don't remember that?
No.
Now, had you been to Burlingame, California that summer?
Yeah, that's where I played tennis.
That's in July?
Yes.